What's that stand for?
Robin. Riddler and Two-Face can make a pretty lethal combination. Figured you could use a hand.
2 against 2 are better odds.
I can't promise I won't kill Harvey.
A man's gotta go his own way. A friend taught me that.
Not just a friend.
A partner.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. You don't really think you'll win, do you? I'm Batman.
Hey now! Welcome to episode 121 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is a sponsor as well as a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. In addition to the BOF podcast, you can find other shows such as what? Ryan Haas?
Other what?
Other
Slows?
shows. Other
Oh.
shows.
Shows.
It was like
Slows.
shows, and then it was so Ryan Haas. They sort of, you know.
Well,
So Ryan, since you're in charge of the
yeah.
damn Batman Podcast Network, sir, what's going on
Right.
over there?
I'm just gonna plug Justin's shows because Justin's not here. He's got his Let's Go comic show and Let's Go regular show, and those are good shows.
They
If
are
you
good
haven't
shows.
listened to them, they are. I mean, they cover all the pop culture, everything. More specifically, in the comic show, they cover comics every week, and I don't know how they keep up with it, but they do. So if you're a lax on comics and you want to get the pulse of all the different,
The Pulse.
books and stuff, yeah, the
What's
pulse.
hip? What's hip?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
hip pulse. You listen to the
hip
Let's Go
pulse?
comic show.
That sounds like.
That's Paul Hermann, everybody. He just ruined his intro.
Oh
Yeah.
no, there's no intros, man. We just go in. We just do our thing. You know what I'm saying? Come on, Rick. Come on, man.
So I'm your host today, Rick Shew, for this already off the rails shit show podcast.
I love it.
And we're missing Justin, obviously. With me is my
Yeah.
BOF podcast co-host, brother Ryan Haas.
Hello,
Ryan, what's up?
I'm great.
You're talking about Justin.
You sound great.
I'm so
I'm
good.
fabulous.
I'm great.
I'm great. Everything's awesome. And with
Everything
us
is
today is our
awesome.
very special guest. We love
Yes.
Paul
Yes.
Hermann, co-host of many great podcasts, including Marvel Newscast.
Yes,
and he is
yes.
the one and only Paul Hermann. What's up,
Yes. What's up, man? Nothing much. I'm very excited to talk about the couple things we're going to talk about today. I'm very excited. Very
buddy?
excited.
I'm excited. Okay, let me hold. I'm gonna hit pause. I'm gonna finish this little intro here. I'm gonna come back to that. So I'm gonna bring this full circle. All right, and as always. Oh, trust me, it always comes back around. Like every time you think, man, Rick's got a little ADD when he hosts. Like, damn, that boy's on his Riddler though. He brings that shit back around. Anyway, so as always,
Oh god.
Batman on Film is the authoritative and the definitive. Anybody want to do it? Anybody?
No.
I'll do it.
Dadgum. Dadgum.
The
What is it?
Dadgum.
The dadgum original.
Doggone original.
Dad-
Doggone, daggum.
right,
Whatever.
guys.
It's the same difference.
So today's discussion. I can't even talk anymore.
Discussions.
Discussion.
you.
It actually revolves around an op-ed that I wrote entitled for Batman on Film: How to Make Robin Work in a Live-Action Film. The catalyst for this podcast wasn't really the op-ed per se. Paul and I got into a very friendly text message, call it a debate, Paul. I don't know. You
Yes.
said, I read it, liked it, disagreed with some points, and you started just saying a lot of awesome things. And I just said, dude, pause. This needs to be a show. And you gave me a thumbs
Yeah.
up. And I'm paraphrasing here, but that's the gist of it.
That's pretty much it, actually.
Yeah. And I looped everybody in and said, we need to do a show because Paul was making some great points. I like to be challenged because here's the deal. There's no wrong or right on this thing. I just have an opinion.
There's a right.
I have an
And be honest, you wrote this op-ed wanting people to challenge it. Right?
I know.
You wanted people to be like,
absolutely.
ooh, I
I
can't
want
wait for
people-
people to want to do shows with me.
Every
op-ed I wrote.
Of course I want people to challenge me on this. Of course I do. Absolutely. And listen, I welcome being on a show with two guys that read a lot more comics than I do too. I mean, this is gonna be it's very.
You read
challenging.
comics?
I do read comics.
Rick does read comics.
Believe me, I read comics.
I know.
It's
I'm sorry.
it's fun. You know, it's kind of funny because Bill and I have talked about this. I said you kind of started this thing where people think I've never picked up a damn comic book.
Me?
No,
No, Bill.
No, I was
This
like,
whole Rick doesn't
yeah.
read comics, and he's laughing. But to be fair, I have been very lazy over the last several years. Not just comics, just reading.
Anything?
Well, and Paul, I know that you're not a novel guy, right? Is that fair to say? Yeah.
Well, yeah. Besides Star Wars novels, but yeah.
Perfect. I do want to read
Yeah.
the new one coming out.
What this new Star Wars novel?
Yeah. When does it come out?
The Thrawn book?
The Thrawn book. Yeah.
Yeah, it just
like
because it's
2
got
weeks.
Hayden Christensen on the cover. That's
No, it
why
has.
you wanna
But
read
it
it.
has.
He doesn't
Natalie
have a
Portman.
neck either.
Has Natalie Portman. No, I do want to read. I don't know why. It's just I'm hyped up for it. It's just an excuse. So anyway, but the bottom line is this. Of course, I read comics. I grew up on comics. But you guys read a lot more than I do, and so I read more than the average person. But I don't read nearly as much as you guys do. So, but at the,
Bring it back around.
At the end of the day, here's the deal. What this is about. Listen. I'll say this. You see, you're going to get on a tangent here. You don't have to be a fan of. We'll say Batman since it's the topic here. If you're a person that fell in love with Batman because of cartoons and movies, and you've never read a comic book but you love Batman, you know what? Don't let anybody ever tell you differently. You are a fan.
Absolutely.
If you are more of a fan, just you like comic books and stuff like that, you're not really in the movies. You are a fan. All right, we're all fans. I am probably 70%, 75%. The visual medium, TV and film, and I'm 25-30%
Comics are visual too, by the way.
They are. No, absolutely. You know what I mean, though. Yeah.
You mean moving picture media?
Yes, and so you guys are probably 50-50 and maybe even more comics than you are anything.
I'm probably 60-40 comics, but like that 40% is like closer to 50, if that makes any sense.
And I'm more like 25-30%. And I'm more like 25-30%.
Just by volume alone, just reading, just takes it up.
Exactly.
But and I've been reading some Robin, and I always actually go to Ryan to get advice on Robin stuff, so it's cool. And I love reading the standalone Robin stories, guys. I've never really gotten into that.
Yeah.
Tim Drake. I mean,
We have a whole podcast. We have a whole other podcast just for that, just for Tim Drake.
It's
Robin.
good stuff.
It is.
really
That's a great podcast. I've listened to it a
Everyone
little
loves
bit,
the
not a
Drake.
lot. Not a lot, but a little
good
bit.
stuff.
Yes.
But anyway, so I wrote this op-ed, and it was about how to make Robin work in film. In a live action film, not just like something animated or whatever. And I want to talk about that. But before we do, there is some Batman related news that I think we should just at least touch upon real fast. So it's official. It's official that there is going
It
to
is
be
really official, which is
It's actually official.
not
that
fake
there-
official.
Yeah.
Not
fake
heroic
official.
Hollywood official?
That- Hey, anybody.
That was mostly a joke, just because I know Ryan likes to rib on them all the time.
Yeah, it's
All
my
right.
deal. It's my
But
thing.
anyway, it's a standalone Joker film. And when I first got the news, and it's Todd Phillips, the guy did the Hangover films and whatnot. Joaquin Phoenix, who is the late River Phoenix's younger brother, who is a just a remarkable talent. I mean, the guy is. I mean, I can think back going to when he was a little boy doing Parenthood.
Oh, Parenthood's so good.
It's so good, and he's so good in it. So
Everyone's good in that movie.
You're right. Keanu Reeves was great in that film. And,
Hey, come on, man.
absolutely. And then going up to what did we actually call the
Walk
Johnny
the
Cash-
Line?
Walk the Line thing.
Oh, that's good.
that movie with Mangold who directed it.
Yeah.
He was going to direct a Boba Fett movie, but not anymore, I guess, because he's mad at the
Oh,
fandom.
standalone Star Wars topics. That's a whole other podcast.
It is.
But yeah. And I want to, Paul. I want to talk about that stuff with you on the
Just
podcast.
another
Anyway,
time.
so here we are. It's official that there's going to be a standalone film, and it's supposedly it's going to exist in a vacuum. It's going to be its own thing. Initial thoughts on this, guys? Like Paul, you're the guest, so jump in
thank
here.
you.
What do you think what's your gut on this? Are you excited? What
Okay.
do you think is going to happen with it? What's your
right.
vision for it?
All right, so hear me out here, people. So when me and Rick decided to do this podcast, I had no idea this topic was going to be on here. But when it got officially announced, I got really excited. I pretty much demanded we talk about it like as soon as possible, because I feel this is a very important film. Now, hear me out. Why? because this is the first, I think, experimental film that Warner's and DC Comics are going to use and look and see how they can use their intellectual properties in a different way than Marvel in the whole cinematic universe. And I see a lot of reactions, and this is not a bad reaction, but I'll just call them reactions. I don't agree with. But there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, we don't need two Jokers," and there's too many movies, and all this stuff. And I get it. I understand it. But for me, this is an important thing because this is, I think, the first foray into something different you can do with these characters and these properties that I think DC and Warner Brothers were afraid of or are a little skeptical to do at first. And what better way to use than to use one of its biggest villains ever, with one of the best artsy fartsy actors ever in Joaquin Phoenix, put them together. It's a crazy mix that I have no idea what they're going to do. It sounds like, in what I've read, and I've read Bill's pieces where he took some quotes from Joaquin Phoenix himself, and he kind of talked about it with Phillips and whatnot. And it sounds really interesting. And I think what I like the idea is they're not putting a ton of money in this movie. They're saying, here's a small budget, a small story. Let's have
55 million.
Yeah,
right?
Let's just throw.
It's just small for this.
It's a lot, but it's small for this kind of what you would think.
Yeah, no, it's really small. It's not 200 million like you would think it would.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the thing is, sorry, my dog has a bone. I gotta take it from her as soon as I'm done talking. But this is the first of, I think, of what they want to do and try and say, we'll have a cinematic universe to the left here, but to the right, we're going to have all kinds of different characters and movies that might have these characters. Like, you might get that Superman Red Sun movie that everyone wants, or not everyone, but a lot of people want, or whatever. And then you still have a Henry Cavill-ish or whoever plays, cinematic universe, Justice League universe, Superman. Or you have that Batman with gods and the Batman without gods, right, Rick? So I think you can have your cake and eat it too with this. And I think this is what I love about what DC's doing. They're doing something different. Instead of being like, we gotta be like Marvel, they're making all the money, what can we do? No, they're gonna say, you know what?
Was that a Rocky impression? What was
sure,
that?
I guess it was. Oh, no.
Go ahead.
Warner Brothers walks in and goes, hey, what are we gonna do? What kind of moves are we gonna do?
You knocked them down. Why don't you tell knocking me down now?
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
To finish up sorry, I'm talking way too long. But to finish this up, I think this is all great. Is it going to work? I have no idea. I'm excited because I love crime movies. I love mob movies. And you're literally taking one of the most iconic villains ever, or the most iconic villain ever, in my opinion. You're putting him in with one of the best actors working today, and you're making a gangster movie. So you're telling me I can't lose here, in my opinion. Like, I really can't. So I'm excited. I think other people should not just give it a chance, but get excited too, because give Warner Brothers some credit. They're doing something different.
Absolutely. I agree with practically all of that. Ryan, are we going to see a traditional Joker in this film?
I don't think anything about this movie sounds traditional to me. And I think
by traditional, you know what I mean. We're going to see a white skinned, whether it's makeup or
perma white. I really don't know. I almost my gut would say no ? I mean, and that's the thing. It's like the two things. I mean, Paul said that this is really different, but on the other hand, it's almost like a return to form to the Dark Knight trilogy days, where it's like we just want to have a filmmaker with a vision come in and make a pitch, and that sounds good and interesting, and make a movie about it. Like, that shouldn't be that revolutionary, but in this day and age where everything has to be a franchise, it is revolutionary. So imagine that. Imagine that. We'll have and that's how you get actors like Joaquin Phoenix that, might be a little apprehensive of committing to a giant, multi-picture, franchise thing. So on the actor part of it, like, that's a clear indicator of the quality of this thing. He's not an actor that's going to just take something because he wants to, or because it's going to make a bunch of money or something. He's going to take it because there's some substance behind it.
Sure.
And I think what's interesting is,
and that's not to imply that there wasn't substance, obviously, behind The Dark Knight or even Batman '89.
No,
or to some degree,
no.
Suicide Squad.
No, of course.
But your
I'm just
point
saying,
stands.
I'm saying, from a point of this has to be a franchise versus, you know, we want people to, we want to enable filmmakers to make films based on these characters without having to be, you know, tied down by any, you know, outside factors like that. But the interesting thing is when this was first, like, I don't want to say announced, but first, you know, talked about or teased, you know, when we heard about it last year or, you know, months ago or whatever, it was always talked about that this thing was this Joker origin movie. And that was the single thing that sounded like a bad idea to me, because if there's one villain that doesn't need an origin, it's the Joker. Like, he doesn't work very well when you try to throw an origin onto him. You know, even when they've done it in the comics explicitly, it's been really not good. And even when they've tried to make, you know, have a Joker not origin, but a solo Joker anything, like there's a solo Joker series, you know, in the 70s. The great Dennis O'Neil even wrote that series, and he'll even tell you, like, that was really hard to do. And there's been some standalone graphic novels, you know, you've got the Liebermejo Azzarello Joker graphic novel, but I'm not sure if that is a movie, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But the funny thing is, the more we learn about this project, the more interesting that I think it is. And in the Hollywood Reporter's article, they it says that the studio describes this movie as being an, quote, exploration of a man disregarded by society that is not only a gritty character study, but also a broader cautionary tale. And nothing in that quote says origin movie to me. And the more I read about this movie, I feel like it's everything is pointing to me that this movie is like really different, so different that the only buzzword that they can attach to it is origin movie. Right. And that's what's being attached to it, just to kind of, it's a buzzword and you throw it out there. Joker origin movie. That's easy to say. That's easy to report on. But everything else, when you actually read the articles, does not sound like origin movie to me. I think this is a completely different animal. And that's something that I think Bill has started to pick up on too. Like, if you read that article that Bill wrote talking about how he thinks this thing's going to be really different. So
yeah, I agree. The only thing I'll push back on, and I said this this morning in our Bill and I did a vlog for BOF, and it's up live now. But anyway, here's the thing. I agree with all that, and I think it is going to be something unique and different and standalone. And it's probably not going to be what 98% of fans think this is going to be. However, calling it the Joker and making it an official DC property, can they get away with doing that without some, dare I use the word traditional, but I'll use it here, traditional aspects of the character?
Yes.
Can the film succeed without that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They can, because it's
a question. Like, it's not rhetorical.
The answer is, the launching point for that is The Dark Knight, because you take comics, you adapt them. You know, they're an adaptation. You take the parts you want and make your own, you know, interpretation out of it for the medium you're doing it in film. And this is like another offshoot of that, even from what it seems like to me. Like, they're not shooting, but what I mean is, shooting for that. You still have a white face, red lipstick, purple suit Joker and green hair. Well, yeah, if you're going to call it Joker, there's going to be something in there. That's what I meant. That's what I meant by that was, Bill was saying we may not even see him in quote unquote costume. I mean, it could be like, I was thinking about this. It could be it's like how The Dark Knight is like, it's a crime drama that just happens to have Batman and the Joker in it. I mean, it could be like that. And it could be like, I was thinking today, like, this could be like Rogue One, where, there's this awesome part, the 5 minutes at the end where Darth Vader shows up. It could be like that. Like, it could be in a completely different movie with his character, and in the last 10 minutes, he's Joker or something. Here's the thing. This is why they're making the movie, in my opinion. You've got a guy, an actor, and you're going to put him out in front of an audience. You can't just put him as Joaquin Phoenix. That's not going to, that'll sell them to an extent. But here's the thing. I agree with you guys that this is not necessarily an origin film in the true sense of, like, he becomes Joker, like, at the very end of the movie. I think we're talking like, I think he becomes Joker within the first 15, 20 minutes, and it's his rise to power. And that's the whole thing. And I think he has to sell the audience as a villain, because you could call this a Joker movie
And that's you made this movie for $55 million, and I think they understand if we put the Joker in this movie, it's going to make money. This is going to make a profit. This movie will have to be the biggest giant turd in order to not make money, in my opinion.
I think at this point, I think Warner Brothers thinking that they can slap a name on a movie and it'll make money is not the right thing to do. Like, because when you look at Justice League.
Yeah, but that's because the budgets were out of control. This is why I know for a fact they're gonna turn a profit on this alone, because you put a Joker movie out there, it's gonna make between 50 and 70 million opening weekend right off the bat. So, and that's what I'm saying.
And that means like with a lower budget, that also means like you don't, and it R-rated probably.
Maybe. Yeah.
That means you don't have to have toys. You don't have to have, all the other marketing stuff that goes along with it. That you don't have to spend all this crazy money on these crazy advertisements and stuff like that.
So, and I'll just finish up like with my whole thoughts on this is that if because of that reason you have a movie that you want to make money at, obviously you're spending a decent amount of money, but not a lot. 55 million. You're gonna want to sell this to the audience. The only way you sell this to the audience is that you show Joaquin Phoenix as a Joker, and he has to be believable. And if he can pull it off in that first teaser, just like Heath Ledger, and make people go, okay, I believe it. I think he can. If he does, and I think he has to be white makeup, green hair, purple jacket. I think for 75% of the movie in order for it to work. I really do. And I think if they do that and Joaquin Phoenix nails the character, it's gonna blow away their expectations.
I agree with all that. And that was a little bit of a disagreement between Bill and I, that he's saying, you know what, it doesn't need that, we don't need to see that maybe until the end of the movie. I'm going, I don't know, they can get away with that. I think Paul's on the money on this. Hey, real quick question before we get into the main topic. Are we going to see Jared Leto's Joker again, period? Paul?
I'd say I'm 50-50, but if I had gun to my head, I'd say no.
Ryan?
I after this movie became a confirmed thing, I don't think that the solo Leto Joker movie that's also supposed to happen is going to happen now. I certainly
don't think that we're going to get a Leto solo movie.
Yeah, he could show up in Suicide Squad 2 or a
Birds of Prey, maybe
Birds of Prey or whatever, maybe. But it's not I don't think it's a given.
But if that Joker does appear and it's in that continuity, I don't think someone as great of an actor as Leto is going to
follow up.
Right, probably. I think we've already seen that. Like, he wasn't that thrilled with how Suicide Squad turned out, and too. So like, I could see him not returning.
Dude, half his scenes were cut, man.
Yeah,
I mean, totally. I mean, I don't know if that's completely accurate, 50%, but
a lot, a significant
ton
portion
of scenes were cut. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cool. And listen, I agree with Paul. I think that, quite frankly, I think we're all on the same page. I think this could be what I love about it is that it is DC taking chances. It is DC, I think, Paul, you said it, or Ryan, forgive me, but that they're not trying to be Marvel. And maybe they tried that. Maybe they try to shoehorn that a little bit too much with B versus S and whatnot. And now they're taking a step back and saying, well, what works? What works? Character analysis, these characters that can exist in these particular stories in a vacuum or whatever, and that's what we need to focus on. And I think that's great.
And the two things that like really are getting me excited about this is that we already know Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor, but hearing him talk about it in this Collider article today was really fascinating.
Same,
because right after he talks about how the movie is, he said it's its own world in some ways, and he talked about how it's doing the role scares him, like, which is interesting. And the other interesting thing was how he had a call with his agent about doing a movie just like this, a character study about a popular villain, and he even thought about the Joker. He even thought about the Joker, but said that's you can't just do that because it's been done. But the fact that he's like scared of and excited about it, and the fact that he already thought that this movie would be a good idea, but it didn't happen, and now it's kind of he's been able to fall into it, doing something exactly what he wanted to do years later. I think that's going to be a really interesting combination. Yeah.
I did too. Listen, if you're a fan of his powerhouse acting, right? And I know I'm setting that up like you should be, because it's not like I said, if you're just a fan of his acting, if you're a fan of his badass acting, meaning if you're not, that means you're not a fan of badass acting. I'm just telling you, the guy is the real deal. And I think that he's going to do something very special with this. And I hope Scorsese is still attached to this, although I did not hear his name or read his name in the most recent reports, but hopefully he is. But if not, all good. We're still going to get what we get, and I think it's going to be something special. I hope it is, knock on wood. All right, so let's move on to the main topic here, guys. The Robin op-ed I wrote in terms of how to make Robin work in a live-action film. And I'm going to briefly summarize the article for those that haven't read it, and also just to sort of set up the conversation, okay? So what I suggested is that Robin is a difficult character to pull off in a grounded live-action film. Not in Lego Batman, not even necessarily really in Joel Schumacher's films, although I still don't think that worked, but really nothing worked for me in those films anyway. And certainly not in an animated film, and certainly not in the comics. I'm talking about a live-action film with real actors and a Nolan-esque universe that's not Nolan duplicated, but it's grounded in reality, it's gritty, etc. Okay,
I don't want John Blake, Rick.
Well, we'll get to that. And
no, we won't.
And I don't.
Let's not mention John Blake.
I know
we have to.
We will.
We have to.
And I love John Blake, and I love the way he represented Robin in that trilogy that existed in that vacuum. But we can't do that again. We need a traditional Robin, or at least a visually traditional Robin. I don't know. We'll get to that. We'll see what you guys think. And I've always thought if you make him too old, it doesn't work because he's not really Robin. And even in that was sort of the original sin for me in Batman Forever. I know he was supposed to be in high school, but Chris O'Donnell was like 25. He looked 22. It was all just very weird to me. I'm like, why doesn't this dude just get a
Wait, he was
job?
supposed to be in high school?
I mean, yeah, I think so because it doesn't really reference that he's in high school per se, but there is the one line where Val Kilmer says to him, "No, Dick Grayson, college student." Now, you can say that to a 40-year-old. I'm just saying,
exactly. Yeah.
But in that movie, and when you take everything in context, I think he's probably supposed to be probably at least maybe a senior in high school or just out of high school.
I don't agree with that. But anyway, continue.
I mean, you in that movie, Bruce wouldn't say to Dick or Dick Grayson, college student, or how about just get a job. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like taking it all in the context, and they did stay true to Dick Grayson's origin story for the most part. I mean, obviously it wasn't Two-Face, but still, it was Flying Graysons. His parents were killed, etc. Okay, all right. So I just said if you make him too old, it doesn't work. And if you make him too young, and I'm sure this will bring up a lot of debates here, okay, in a live-action film, I mean, it's like child abuse, right? I mean, if he's like 14, 15, 13 years old and Bruce is training him and letting him go out on the streets and put his life on the line to fight crime, it's a little much, and I just don't think that will work in a true live-action film. And I do believe that it's one of the reasons why we haven't really seen him in a live-action film other than the Joe Schumacher films. Tim Burton didn't do it. Nolan kind of, in a roundabout way, did it, but really didn't do it. And even Snyder, I mean, he had him dead. I mean, presumably that's Jason Todd and Dick Grayson's off being Nightwing, but Robin wasn't in the frickin' movie. And I think it's hard. I think it's hard for him to pull off. I mean, there's a reason why Tim Burton pulled him out of 89 when they had, storyboards and everything set up for him. So anyway, here's what I thought. I just had some thoughts on how this could work. I'd want to see this in a trilogy where it has a chapter 1, 2, and 3, much like the Dark Knight trilogy. And we see this build over time. And in the first chapter, what I want more than anything, okay, is to see a parental angle here that we have not seen in film. That Bruce is his dad. And I'm a parent, but I think about, like, I have friends that have teenage kids that have been very rebellious, and just unhinged. And it's gut-wrenching. It's heartbreaking. They don't know what to do. They can't control them. They're all over the place. Some of them are in and out of jail, or they're doing drugs, or they're partying, or they're out just whatever they're doing. It sucks. And obviously, we want the negative things about Dick or Jason, Tim hybrid, whatever we want to call him, to have that negativity be reflected in terms of him going out and fighting crime to whatever it is he's trying to do for himself, whatever's cathartic for him. Is he trying to get back at his parents' killers, or is it just something along the lines of Batman, or is he just a shithead teenager? I don't know. There's something there to be said, and I want that struggle of Bruce as a father, to see that pain and that agony, to that parent that's sitting by the phone waiting for their kid to get home and they don't know where they're at, that kind of thing. I want to see and feel that in this film. And then that Robin in chapter 1, and trust me, guys, I'm almost done here because I'm going to turn the floor over to you guys. But in chapter 1 is not He's not endorsed by anyone. Alfred does not support this. He's a kid. He's 14. He's 13. He's maybe 15, whatever. And he's in a house-made costume. He's out doing this on his own, and Batman can't control him. And have that story being told, and then in Chapter 2, you can time jump a little bit, or you should certainly time jump several years, and then it's a little bit more accepted. Bruce is training him, but he's still apprehensive. There's things going on. Obviously, you have different subplots and whatever. And then by Chapter 3, it's the dynamic duo, and we've earned it. We love it. We get it. It makes sense. And this Dick or whatever is now 20-something years old, 21, 20, and who knows? Maybe he's Nightwing at the end of the film. I don't know. That's the vision. And so I think that you guys both agree. So let's just wrap this show up and do plugs. So, Paul, you want to plug something?
Wow.
All right. So I'm done setting it up. And so the floor is yours, Paul. You were sending me some great text the other day. Let's talk. Go.
Okay. So I thought it was interesting what you were saying. I think that I've always wanted Robin in the Batman movies, and also want people to realize that I love the Robin character a lot, specifically Tim Drake. I went back in middle school. I'm 36, so about early 90s. I went to Halloween as Robin because I think it was sixth grade. I even dyed my hair black, which if you guys know what I look like, I'm an overweight blonde guy. So I was an overweight blonde guy dyeing his hair black, dressing as Tim Drake Robin in sixth grade. And it was just funny because I always be the Marvel zombie. I always was, but I was bitten by the DC bug a little bit because I've always loved Batman. I grew up on Batman, watching Batman, 66 and The Dark Knight Returns. I'm not kidding. And Batman 89. Those were my first foray into Batman and Super Friends action figures that I had. And so when Nightfall happened, I got really into the Batman's back being broken. I started, bought a few comics, but that's when Robin's new series started, and I got really attached to him, and I loved those first couple issues with him fighting the gang and they had the Redbird car. I mean, I love that Redbird car just blew my mind.
Good.
I was like, man, Bruce Wayne Batman created his own Robin-mobile. That's incredible. Why didn't he do that sooner? One of those moments. And I've always loved Robin. So, I'm a Marvel zombie at heart, but I do love Batman and Robin, and I love Robin a lot. Specifically Tim Drake. So when I read this editorial that Rick did, and I thought I liked where he was going. He obviously, if you a gun to your head, Rick would not want to have Robin in a movie. It's easier. I'm assuming that's what you're saying, Rick.
Well, that's a fair question. At the end of the day, do I prefer Batman without Robin? Yes, but I actually do want Robin in a film, and I want him to work. And so, that's why I took the time to write this. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, because if I didn't want him, I wouldn't try to put out there in the universe any way that I thought that maybe he could work. Not saying that a filmmaker is going to pick this up. I'm just
right,
you know what I'm saying?
Right,
of course. And I do love Robin, and but I want this done correctly, and so I would, and he deserves it. Listen, if you're a Batman fan, you're crazy about Robin, whatever. Well, kind of tough shit, right? He's part of it, right? He deserves to be in a film, and he deserves to work. I think he needs that.
So when I was reading your editorial, I didn't think that, I didn't agree with one major thing was having Robin be this delinquent jerk kid, because I think of Jason Todd like that, and that was kind of a negative connotation, and fans did not connect with him because he was.
It made fans not like him.
Yeah. Which you could argue
comic book fans,
right? Yeah, comic book fans, and I think you would also Damian was a little similar to that, but there's a little that's a whole long story too in itself, but. I think that when I was reading your article, I just, it was hard for me to buy into that, because I feel one of the main aspects of Batman and Robin is that Robin is like Batman, just younger and misguided in different ways. And all incarnations are different in the Robins that we've gotten. Dick is a little more, I want to say pure, but he seems more of an innocent than Batman. Batman has this dark side, whereas Dick does, but he's not as dark. He's a little bit lighter, and he's a little bit, I don't know. He just seems a little bit more just kind of calmer about things. And I think of someone like, Jason, he represents the anger side of the darker aspects of Batman.
Sure.
And he brings that out in him, or not out, but just here it represents that side. I think Tim Drake represents the determined side of Bruce Wayne. And I love that idea of all those Robins representing different ideas of Bruce Wayne / Batman. And I think and to me, that's what Robin does so good as that character, is he brings out those different aspects at different times. So I think that if you're going to do a film with Robin, I think first things first, you can't have him be a young adult, or like a 14, 15-year-old kid. That's throws out the window. You can't do it. It's like you said, it's borderline child abuse. In reality, it would never happen. Whatever. I think if you're giving me the script and you're saying, how do you make Robin work? I'm going to say this. I think you have to kind of twist it, just like how Nolan did. I'm not a John Blake guy at all, for the record, but I think you have to do what Nolan did in some aspects.
I thought you said you liked Tim Drake.
I love Tim Drake.
Anybody? Anyway, go ahead.
Wow. So you bring all Robins together, and I think, but you also have to kind of twist things and put them on their head a little bit too. At least in my opinion. At least because here's the thing: by the time we're dead, there'll be a number of films with Robin and Batman, and they'll retell the origins of how Robin and Batman meet in multiple different times. So, but if you're asking me, I would say I think you have to make play off the fact that Batman's the inspiration. Okay. Batman is out fighting crime, and he finds this kid. And you can have him be an orphan. I'd say almost like Tim Drake. He's single dad. He's crippled. He has a hard time keeping track of his son. But not saying it has to be Tim Drake, but just a Tim Drake like in certain aspects. He's out fighting crime because he's inspired by Batman. He's good, but he's getting in over his head. And he's at that age now where he's about to graduate high school, or he just graduated high school, something around that. He's a man. He's 18. And he's like, if I don't train him, he's going to die. Because I could try to stop him. I could throw him in jail. But this kid's an 18-year-old kid. He sees too much of himself in that character.
That is the second movie. You just laid out the...
Yeah, I can see that.
In my trilogy, right. So
that's a lot of what Jason Todd was too. Like, he felt like, if I don't keep him as Robin and keep watch on him and try to make him better, he's going to go off the rails.
And then Tim Drake was the guy that's saying, "Look, you need me because I keep you balanced.
Keep you on the rails.
You're watching out for me. You're better. You better yourself for it." Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, and that's the thing. I think with Jason Todd, though, the problem was he was just a jerk. Outright. Yeah. I think that's why if you switch it and you take that aspect, Ryan, and again, I just reread a ton of the stuff. So I read the Jason Todd stuff just a few weeks ago, and I liked it a lot. Like, I liked it way more than I thought I was going to, but I could see why people didn't like Jason Todd at first. At least, and again, I haven't read into the Red Hood stuff, so I know a lot of people like that. But I'm talking about the 80s stuff. So when Jason Todd was introduced, he just is like a jerk. He doesn't really seem grateful for what's going on. I think if you take his kind of role as Batman fighting this guy, but again, Jason Todd wasn't even fighting crime. He's stealing hubcaps off the Batmobile. Right. So I think you have to make Robin admire and respect Batman enough to listen to him. He can take he's a street fighter. He's gotten his own fights or whatever, and then Bruce Wayne comes in and says, "Man, if I don't do anything, this kid's gonna keep fighting crime. I could throw him in jail. I could punch him in his face. He's just gonna keep doing it." Then he takes him under his wing and becomes that team. And I think that is the crucial part. Batman being the inspiration, and Batman also seeing him so much of himself in there, and also responsibility, because it's the inspiration that causes him to go out in the first place. So he's also driven by guilt. You can play off that a little bit, and where he's like, am I training him because it's the right thing to do, or am I feeling guilty? Great storyline stuff that you could really play off of. I mean,
I couldn't agree more, and I'm not being facetious when I say this, or self-congratulatory either. That is literally what I would love to see in the second film of what I'm talking about. 100%. I want to build to that, and I want to build to that because I think that there's a story to be told in terms of this parental aspect that we could really touch upon in the rebellious teenager that grows into the character you're talking about right now, and all that stuff happens. And Also, at the end of the day, you also still get Robin at 13, 14 years old, and then by the third film, you can just go balls out dynamic duo. Paul, you gave me chills, like goosebumps, dude. Everything you said was better than I could articulate. It's exactly in my head what I would love to see the second film and even part of the third film be in the trilogy that I'm talking about that could happen. Ryan, you are the biggest Robin fan I know personally. I sent you my op-ed before I published it, and you gave me some good suggestions on a couple of things, especially like mentioning Damien.
And can I really fast? I consider Ryan like the DC counterpart to me. Like, I'm not saying I'm like this, I'm not saying like I am like
a compliment.
No, but and I'm not even saying I'm like this big Marvel guru, because there's a million people who know more than me. But like,
and I'm not a big giant DC guru.
But the thing is, you have a deep passion for it, and I respect it, and I just see that, and I'm like, you're my DC counterpart. I just want you to say that really fast.
That's the key excellent. Right there. It's about the passion for all this, right?
Yeah.
So Ryan, we talked about the article before I even published it. You gave me a couple of suggestions of some things, and Ryan, I wrote everything, and he said, you should probably address the fact some things about Damien. That's a good point. That could be a good rebuttal. So I added that and tweaked the article a little bit. So I wouldn't publish anything Robin centric without talking to you. So that's why you had to be on the show. I hate that Justin's not on it. It sucks. But you not being on it I would have canceled it, because again, and I know Justin would agree with me, no one knows Robin like you do. So what do you think? Not so much what do you think of Rick Shew's article per se, but what would you love to see Robin on film be, and how do you think it could work?
I mean, I like the idea of it being a trilogy, because I think the character deserves it. The character needs that kind of gravitas in terms of showing why it's important, why the character is important to Batman. The thing is like, you'd have to make it would have to be a Robin trilogy with Batman as almost like a secondary influence, and I feel like we're probably not going to get that.
But why would you need that? Why couldn't it be them? Or
it could. I mean, it would be a Batman and Robin movie. Yeah, cool. I mean, you would have to make that the backbone of the movies. You take your Dark Victory. That's the Tim Sale. Jeff Loeb.
I need to read that. That's a sequel to Long Halloween, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you could take that. I mean, the thing is like, I'm really torn on the make it a composite Robin or make it a one of the actual Robins, because unlike Batman, Batman for the most part it should be Bruce Wayne, especially on film, but Robin is interesting. Dick Grayson is Robin, and all the other Robins that come after him are each Robin informs the next Robin, right? Like, you can't really have Jason Todd without Dick Grayson, and you can't really have Tim Drake without the previous two, and you really can't have Damien without the others. I mean, in one hand, you could just skip everybody and just do. I was talking to Rick about this. I'm like, you could skip everything and just straight up do Damien.
No.
I mean,
I don't even want to straight up do Tim Drake, because I want his parents both to be dead. I want him to be an orphan just like Bruce. But anyway,
I'm saying
Tim Drake's parents could be dead. By the way.
And that's it. You're right. They could, and eventually they are. His mother's dead, and then eventually his dad does get killed. But yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Ryan. Well, the thing is like, you could do Damien because the reason is, but in my opinion, that's too easy. But for a filmmaker, it could be appealing because you don't have to worry about any baggage or whatever, and he's just he's Batman's kid. So even if he's like young, it makes sense because A, he's Bruce Wayne's child, and B, he's been trained from birth by the League of Assassins. So it and then that also gives you the Batman has to train this kid before he goes off the rails. I mean, all that stuff's built in. But my thing, and even with the composite Robin, is like, well, why is he Robin? You know what I mean? Like, is he just kid vigilante? And then, like, who makes the choice of him becoming Robin? Maybe that's just semantics or something, but I feel like to get the Robin persona, you kind of have to do Dick Grayson, or it doesn't make sense to me. It seems forced. It just seems forced. No, I mean, because otherwise you just make his middle name Robin, and you just have people know why it's important. Otherwise, like, how does that even work? How does that make sense if it's not,
That's the comic book
origin.
purist in you talking, though. Fair to say.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other people might agree with me. Like, are you a fan? Whether you're a fan of Batman and Robin, Robin as a construct or Robin as a character. And if you're a fan of Robin as a character, I don't know if people that are fans of Robin as a character would be happy with a composite new version of the character on screen, because they are fans of Dick Grayson or Jason Todd or Tim Drake, and they want to see those characters.
And
on
you
screen.
can call it that. And and let's listen. I'm not saying let's neglect those fans. I mean, obviously we are. I say we are the ones buying the comic books. We're the first ones in line to see these films. We're buying the magazines. We're talking about it on the air. We're doing all these things. We are sort of the heart and soul of all this. But we are still a small minority of people that go to see these movies. 88% of people that go see these films aren't comic book readers. They don't follow this stuff. You could put Robin up
the
there
mainstream knows Robin. The mainstream doesn't know Dick Grayson or Tim.
That's
Drake
exactly my point. That's exactly where I was going. Is that they just know Robin. But to what you're saying is that I would love for this particular Robin that I'm envisioning in my head to actually eventually become Nightwing too. So then he's Dick Grayson.
Well, then you're really going to piss people off if it's not Dick Grayson.
Well, yeah, you can
be Dick Grayson. You just have to take some liberties. He can still be Dick Grayson. He could be work at Cirque du Soleil or whatever, because as Bill says,
see, that's the thing, and then that leads me down the next question. If you make him if you want him to be Nightwing, he has to be Dick Grayson. And if you make him Dick Grayson, then he, in some regards, needs to kind of hold up to the character traits of Dick Grayson. Like,
I don't know.
You can't go so far off the rails. And if you do,
I don't think you do.
I mean, you could.
I think you do. I think you do if you do Dick Grayson. If you make him
don't.
Dick Grayson, you have to make him Nightwing in the third film, in my opinion.
Oh well, yeah.
No,
but see, I don't. But you don't. But you do, because if you don't, people will get
You have
pissed.
to leave the possibility open.
Yeah.
For him to.
My
be
wife loves Batman movies. Okay, she loves them. She loves them.
Sure.
Loves them. I guarantee you, if she went to see these films and we got to film 3 and there was Nightwing, she would not sit there and go, why is he not Nightwing?
But it doesn't matter, though.
She represents 85% of the people that see these movies.
Well,
I'm not saying. Listen, I want Nightwing to. I want him to lead to that. I want that. What I'm saying is that let's get out of our. I don't want to call it. I don't want to be condescending here. It's not a negative thing, but our bubble in terms of we can play with this.
Yes,
we can play with this.
We can. And, but here's my thing, and I think a lot of people, that are big Marvel fans too, would agree with me. Like, Robin's been around for 75 plus years. They're spending millions of dollars on these movies. If you're not gonna make him freaking Nightwing, why are you even making the movie? That's kind of where I'm at. Like, if you're not, I mean, it's hard. It's a hard thing to figure out, but if you're not going to get there, then why even bother?
Well, but here's the thing. If you do Nightwing, or if you do Dick Grayson, I think you have to do Nightwing to an extent, because Rick, here's the problem. And Star Wars is having a similar problem to this, I think, a little bit now. It's like the people are forgetting that, like, even though you're absolutely right. The general audience is what drives these movies to be made and what makes them to have sequels. And that's what makes Marvel so successful. It taps into the mainstream Joe Schmo audience who are like, they have no idea who Spider-Man is. And they're like, is it Spider-Man Bruce Wayne? Like, yeah, those people, those people make the money, or make the studio's money. We're a small minority, but there's one major problem that they forget, and this is why you want to please your core audience, or at least the minority core audience. We create a buzz. We talk about it at work, and we will not stop talking about it at work and online and everything. We create the buzz for people to go, oh, I should see this movie because why? Oh, I should see this movie. And that's the thing. We are the ones we're the hype men for all the studios. And that's the issue that I think Marvel has created. They've created, people are talking about it, and they've created a buzz. and they have tapped into that whole thing. But at the same time, they make sure that us as the minority people who see the movies that are hardcore fans, make us happy, and because we'll keep talking about it. We'll keep seeing it on repeat viewings. And that means if we're seeing it on repeat viewings, we're going to be talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks. So
I understand. I don't think that if you do Dick Grayson, it means you automatically have to make him Nightwing.
Well, not right, but my point...
That's all I'm saying.
I know, but what I'm saying is, I think you have to, because you want to please that core audience. So for repeat viewings, to create that buzz. So if you do, and to me, if you create, let's say like, Matt Reeves, right? Matt Reeves is like, I want to do a Batman and Robin story. And then Warner Brothers is like, okay, let's do it. And then what can we do? What kind of stories do you want to tell? There's going to be an immense amount of pressure on Matt Reeves by the studio, by DC Comics, even on himself, if he just even looks at online and looks into like, what do people want to see in Dick Grayson? That's what I want to do. And he sees this, he's going to have pressure automatically to put Nightwing in it. If he doesn't, that's one thing, but there's an immense amount of pressure to do that.
I don't know. I guess I go back to The Dark Knight Rises, $1.2 billion, critically acclaimed.
Yeah, but it had 2 movies before it that like also were huge.
So would this one though, right?
Well, as far as what Paul was saying too, is like
3 of 2.
BVS in Justice League.
Oh, I'm talking about the hypothetical trilogy that we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, but in terms of what Paul was saying, it's like, yeah, Dark Knight Rises made a ton of money, but thank goodness it was the last one, because if the fourth movie was John Blake Batman, it would not have done as well, because people like us would be. I wouldn't be complaining about it because I like John Blake, but a lot of people would have been complaining about it.
Justin would,
but it was never. And obviously, it was never meant to be anyway.
Right.
Right.
But the thing is, how about this? Let's put it one step further, if you will. What if The Dark Knight Rises was the second film of the trilogy? Okay, think about that. It'd be like you talked about the Last Jedi of Batman films.
People would be so mad.
What if the Phantom Menace was truly the first Star Wars movie? Huh?
But my point is this: we're talking about Robin, and we're talking about Batman and setting expectations, and that's what I'm saying. Like if you do, you have to really. You have to give the fans something. You can do your own vision to an extent. And again, let's not pretend Batman Begins was like this giant, huge, successful film. It was successful enough to generate a sequel that was gigantic, that had a perfect story.
Goodwill back.
Exactly. Yeah. And it built on, and again, I'm not this giant, I'm not on your level yet, you guys, for Batman, but I do know that The Dark Knight had a perfect storm, an amazing, everything hit it was perfect, and it set up the perfect thing for the third film. And the third film wasn't terrible, but it definitely left people with a weird taste in their mouths. And if you do that,
a couple of people,
yeah. And if you leave that, if you do that, to
it's
the
like
mythology,
a fresh peach in my mouth.
If you treat the mythology like that again. You're gonna alienate your core audience, meaning the people who are going to What I mean by that is you ignore things like a Nightwing. If you do
but you're talking about the Dark Knight making John Blake a combination of these Robins and becoming Batman, and Batman retiring and all this stuff, and then you're saying that's akin to not making Robin Nightwing? You know what I'm saying? That's a big
he's just talking about the liberties that Dark Knight Rises.
Yes, thank you, Ryan.
No, here's the thing. But here's my hold on.
Let Ryan go.
No, go.
So here's my thing with it. The reason the Dark Knight Rises gets to do that, what it did, is because it built up so much goodwill with the first 2 movies.
Yes,
and it like earned it. So you couldn't just come out of the gate and do like. New filmmaker makes a movie like The Dark Knight Rises. You can't do that.
Oh, that'd be horrible.
You have to get people invested in the story, so that if you want to do something weird like that, you can do it. You can do a big payoff. I mean, and not to say that. I mean, we just talked about this Todd Phillips Joker movie, and that's a little bit more insular because that is like a single character and not an entire canon that you're trying to do. So it's a little different to me. So,
well, at the end of the day. Let's boil this down. I'm not saying let's rush this conversation. I'm just saying, in order for Robin to work, now, Paul has said that we shouldn't make him too young. It doesn't work. We all agree on that. I'm saying that I think there's a story that you could tell with making him that young, and I've already laid that out. Right? No need to repeat it.
Sure.
The movie that Paul laid out, the scenarios were just pitch perfect. Loved everything he said. That's exactly the vision I see for the second film going into the third film. In the third film, if you want to end it, whatever, with him becoming Nightwing, that's all fine and good. That's great. I'm good with that. But I guess my point is this, or my question is this to you, Ryan, is that we've talked a lot here. We gave some analysis. We've put things in context. For you, right here, right now, you had to write a 5-sentence paragraph, and Warner Brothers like, we're going to pay you $50 million. You write us just a brief breakdown of what we should do with Robin on film. Go. What would you write right here, right now, today?
Who, me? Me first?
$50 million, dude. Go. Come on, man.
$50 million, but that's not the giant bombastic. That's the whole budget. Okay, so
no, that's what they pay. They're going to pay you to write
just
something
me?
to
Yeah.
pitch them a
man.
Robin story.
Jeez.
I would just.
Well, I want
Paul's paying attention.
yeah.
I want my cake. I want to have my cake and eat it too. So I would have Batman and Nightwing together from square one, and then you make all the Robin stuff a flashback.
I like that actually.
I don't have a problem with that, and you could still tell
Because you
the
get
story of
invested
this-
in, yeah, and you get invested in Nightwing and the character, and hey, it already works because you see it happening, and you get your Nightwing at first, and then you can be crafty and build along a narrative that you don't know how things are going to play out through the flashbacks. Is
that a necessary obstacle to have, though? You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
it pleases fans. I get that. Fans are important.
It's the thing that you. I mean, the concept is that you could have a cool weaving narrative, and the animated series did that. They had the Nightwing episode that showed how he became Nightwing.
A great episode, by the way.
Yeah, like he's already Nightwing, but then you're like, geez, what happened? And they show like the flashbacks, and then the sister episode of that was earlier is the Robin's Reckoning episode where he's already Robin, and then you find out Robin's origin through flashbacks, and those are both really good, compelling episodes of the animated series. So if they could tap into something like that, I think that would be good because Batman Begins had the flashbacks. Batman's a complex character, so that helped him pretty well when you're trying to show an origin or show like different parts and pieces of his life. And I think Robin's the same way. And, especially if you're going to do the whole gamut and make him Nightwing, I think there's a lot of pieces to that.
One of the things we're kind of overlooked a little bit is that I think that some of the genius of BVS. Now, bear with me for a minute. I like BVS. For the record, I want to make sure that's very clear. I like BVS. If you put a gun to my head, I'd watch BVS over Dark Knight Rises. But I don't think but hold on. I don't think it's a better movie, if that makes any sense. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So what I think is what's telling them BVS I thought was really cool is they made a Batman older. They didn't make him like a young, mid-20s, late 20s kind of, up and coming, vigilante. No, he's like in his late 40s or early 40s, whatever Ben Affleck's supposed to be. And he already has Robin. He has a reason to have Robin. He's dead at that point. But again, they make Batman older. So there's that whole idea of, training and fathering and mentoring. That again,
right.
Those are aspects that we haven't really seen Batman do. That it's untapped potential. And again, the comics are full of great moments of Batman being that father figure. I mean, think about I think of DC characters the ultimate adoption or adoptive ideas of parents. No, but seriously, like
it's true.
It's true. Like Bruce Wayne, like he's like the ultimate adopted, father figure because he comes in, he gives it what he can. He passes down to so many of these young men that he treats like his own. That to be what he needs them, they want to be and whatever they choose. And, he makes mistakes like any father would, and it's awesome. And I think that those are great things that we haven't seen. We saw like 12 seconds of it in Forever, which we don't really count that. But again, like
they fought a whole bunch of Batman.
There were some moments in Forever that
but I think there's great character, quiet moments that we could get in a film like that, if you had an older Batman. And again, I thought BVS, I thought that, to me, what I love a lot about BVS is the mythology they brought in with it that they haven't explained yet. So what I love that
and probably never will.
Right. But what I'm trying to say is if you're talking about a whole new trilogy of films, I think that's what you have to do. Batman has to come in already established, ready to go. He's grizzled. He's
you
tired.
can't have time for Batman origin stuff. No.
Yeah, you have to go into it. He's got to have been doing Batman for 10, 15 years. And he's got to be, or at least 10 years, and he's got to be ready, for a change or ready for something that, that's missing in his life, which is, again, that aspect that we see in the comics of parenthood and mentorship. Those are the things that Batman, I think, needs to have, because he had that in Alfred, and that was so important to him because he didn't have his parents, and he needs to have that to pass down. I think that's a great aspect of Batman that we haven't seen in the films yet.
Yeah, it's interesting because, in the comics, it wasn't 10 years. It's like 3 or 2. But that's interesting because in the comics, at least, I mean, part of that is because they have to try to fit in why Batman's not 100 by the time he has, 8 Robins or whatever. But the interesting thing about throwing Robin in earlier, like 3, 4, 5 years, is he that is long. He thinks he's got it figured out. Batman's in his prime. He thinks he's got it figured out. And if he's the first of many people that Batman would train, I think that's kind of, appropriate to me.
Yeah.
And that makes Batman not the, he doesn't know everything, because I would rather have a Batman that's like, he's confident, but maybe a little too overconfident. He's not the Batman yet. It's almost like we were talking about this too. Like in it's a little too extreme overall for this example. But if you look at All-Star Batman and Robin.
Oh Lord!
That there's you a book where you.
I'm the goddamn Batman.
Well, yeah, like he's not the Batman; he's the goddamn Batman, and that means.
What are you retarded?
And to me, yeah.
Oh,
and
Frank Miller.
Yeah, well, to me, and that's like a Batman who is really thinks he's got it all figured out and really doesn't, and you see that in that story too. But, and that's also got your over the edge type of Robin character that Rick has in his article too. But then again, I think that does kind of show me like, well, that doesn't feel like Dick Grayson, Well,
so. And again, and going back to my article, obviously it's the genesis of this whole thing is that
my article,
yeah, have you read my article? Is that what God bless, is what to clarify? I'm beating a dead horse here, but that's chapter 1. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want that to be perceived as, well, he's getting off the rails, this kind of unhinged Robin doing it more so than Jason Todd and that's the first story, and then it leads to all this other things that we're talking about.
There's one problem.
There's no problem. It's perfect.
No, Rick. There's one problem. I think in a perfect world, if you knew that Batman, this first Batman movie that was going to make $1 bazillion, yes, if you knew that going into making this movie, you could do that. So you could I'm going to build up. But let's see what happens when movies do that. Green Lantern. Yeah, that Sinestro scene sure paid off. Wait a minute, So here's what I'm saying.
BBS.
Well, but you have to have a compelling Batman story. There has to be a B-reel rolling. It has to have great villains. There still has to be a story outside of that.
Right, but let's think of the idea here. How many solo Batman stories have we gotten? And that's the thing. Like, by the time we need to have a trilogy that's based upon Batman and Robin, you can't mess around and say, well, let's introduce this John Blake character, and he'll hang out and be like, why can't I team up with you? Just wait till the next time. Okay, kid? You can't do that. You have to really play off the fact that you can only go to the well so many times, right? You can only have Batman be Batman and just fight people. It works for a while, but you have to start selling something new, and to sell something new, to me, you'd want to have, again, the fatherly mentorship of Batman be the center of that first film, becoming Robin.
I agree. And becoming Robin is where we can kind of swim in the semantics, right? Because how are we defining him becoming Robin? And I laid out my version of it. Yeah. But listen, what I like about this conversation is there's a theme here that we're all talking about is the fatherhood aspect, the parental aspect that we just really haven't seen on film. Even in Batman Forever, I look at that more as a big brother kind of thing, a mentor,
a partner,
yeah, a partner. And I want that.
Can we have that at the very beginning of this episode? A partner.
partner.
Yeah.
That'd be so amazing.
With succulent nipples and a magnum codpiece. Anyway, moving on.
I took the
I
liberty,
love Joel
sir.
Schumacher. I can't.
I still like Forever. It's not perfect by any means, but I mean, yeah.
Well, that's
I
the thing.
like
I mean,
it
that's
listen,
they
I like
did
it better
exactly
than
what you
Batman
said,
Returns.
Paul. Is like they had 2 movies of solo Batman. They're like, we gotta have Robin in this, and they tried. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
they tried.
but here's the problem, though. I think that they didn't take the source materials. I mean, that's obvious. I'm not saying groundbreaking stuff here, but that's the
Right.
thing. I think if you're gonna do a Batman and Robin film, it has to be earnest, and you have to really play on the emotional
Yeah.
aspects of those 2 characters.
Amen to
Right.
that. And that's at the end of the day, that's what I want to see. However it plays out, I want Robin, because we go back to the beginning of this conversation about, do you prefer Batman without Robin? Yeah, I guess at the end of the day I do, but I want, as a fan, as someone that grew up with these guys, I want to see Robin done properly on film. A real Robin. I love what Nolan did. It was great for those films, but I want a Robin. And I think we have a Batman and Robin story for the ages at our fingertips. All right, so I have got to kind of wrap this up myself. I got to get an early flight to Portland, but I had a question.
You're gonna be in Portland? Hold on, you're gonna be in Portland?
Yeah, dude. How far away are you from Portland?
I'm a couple hours. I was just there last Saturday for my anniversary. So
We're flying out tomorrow, and I'm flying home Monday. On Sunday, if by any chance you can get into Portland, let me know, because my wife and I are just going to be like bouncing around breweries and hanging out in downtown.
we'll talk.
Anyway,
We'll talk.
We'll talk.
Okay.
So I do want to wrap this up. Does anybody have any final thoughts just on this particular topic? And then I want to ask another question.
Really, really fast. If we're
please.
final thoughts, I apologize. Everyone. I always tell people.
That's
whenever,
why I want. That's why take your time. That's why I just want to kind of set it up as
Thank you. Robin, again, was one of my favorite DC characters. And I say Tim Drake probably specifically. And I just really want to see that on screen represented at some point, because he's just such a great character, and the character and what he represents with Batman. To me, it's just really, really important, and it's been undervalued, I think, for the other mediums like TV, or not TV, excuse me, for films, I should say. Film. TV, obviously, we've gotten great stories with Robin. So reading these, the last month or so, I've gone through and read, all the Chuck Dixon, Robin stuff, some of the, Jason Todd stuff. I've already read Death in the Family a couple of years ago. So I've been diving in deep with a lot of this stuff before, Rick even wrote this article, and it just cemented it even more for me, how important this character is, how we need to see him on screen. And he's a marketable character. He's like, to me, this obviously is a marketable character, but I mean, like, to me, he's like, if you can get him right on screen, the right story, you're talking like huge. It's huge what the potential with him and that character. And I just reading all those comics of him training with Lady Shiva, is that her name?
Yeah.
So great stuff by Chuck Dixon. Like reading Tim Drake, to me, that his whole story is a perfect segue for a film to use. I know, like, I think, to me, if you're going to use one, you use Tim Drake. If you're using one person only, even over Dick Grayson, because I think that I like the idea of a Robin having to like go back and forth to his dad, to his other mentor figure. I love that idea. That too. And it's something different. But at the same time, I think that in a perfect world, you have to take all of them, kind of like what Nolan did, and made a different amalgam of the character. And maybe you call him Dick Grayson. Maybe you don't. Maybe you call him Tim Drake. I think you do have to initially do that with Dick Grayson. But at the same time, Robin is a great character, and he needs to be on screen. And I think you can make it work. It's not as hard as people make it out to be.
Right.
Okay. I don't know. I think it's hard because by virtue of his age and everything, and he's not Peter Parker. He doesn't have superpowers, and I think it's a difficult thing to pull off. I think so why we haven't seen filmmakers do it. I'll disagree with that aspect. But that just reinforces the other part. I agree with you, is that, but it can be done and it should be done. And obstacles be damned, they should do it. Okay. Ryan, any final thoughts on this?
Yeah. So Paul, in your thing, you were saying like the one you would want to see the most would be Tim Drake. In your head, does that mean there were the other 2 Robins first, or you just found a way to make Tim Drake only the only / first Robin?
I think you can do either one. I think you could, if you wanted to create a deeper mythology that comes before it, kind of like how BVS did, which I liked. I think that aspect worked. I mean, I think we all agree that the aspect of Batman, not the characterization completely, I would say, that everyone would agree on, but the idea of an older Batman that had previously fought and worked in Gotham for so long, people were into that. Like they bought into it. Like, yeah, we like that this mythology hasn't been told necessarily to us. I think you can do something similar to that, and people could buy into it. I mean, just having the Robin costume alone in BVS made people go, "Oh, is that Jason Todd? Who is that? Which one?" And people went nuts for it. And again, you create that buzz that people are like, "Why are they talking about Robin so much?" Like, this guy at work is driving. These guys at work are talking about Robin and what the. I mean, there's so much cool stuff you could do with it. I think you could do either one. I think you could create that narrative, have it. Again, have more tension in your story if you wanted to. Have a Dick Grayson show up as Nightwing as a supporting character and say, "Listen, kid, like what you're getting into, you don't know what you're in for. Like, I've been in your shoes," or, which is great drama, or you could have it be Batman's first time, which is great, raising someone as a mentor or father figure, and have that be, see the growing pains of that through 3 films or whatever. That, I mean, to me, you can win either way if it's done the right way.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's a perfect way to say it. It can be, if you can win either way if it's done the right way. Hands down.
And I was like, because Tim Drake is my favorite Robin, I really want to see him. I want to see that character. And, my earlier example of having your cake and eating it too, with having Nightwing and Robin flashbacks and stuff, like, what more of a perfect way could you do, like, to show why Robin is important than start with Tim Drake? Because the whole character is born out of that, out of, like, why we need Robin.
Yeah.
And you could do that. Like, you could start with Tim Drake, and you could have Nightwing as a supporting character, and then you've got Jason Todd as your, like, example of how wrong it could go. I mean, that would eliminate some of the Batman being not knowing how to do it before or whatever, but that also eliminates the hard parts of, like, why is this kid Robin? Where does Robin, the character, come from? And you get explained that throughout the movie, and you kind of get all 3 Robins, and to me that would kind of honor the legacy of all those characters in one movie. So if you could figure out how to make that compelling, I think that could be really fun too.
Yeah, I agree. All right, quick question before we wrap this up. Matt Reeves' film's around the corner, so to speak. I don't know. We'll see. Right? It's coming at some point, hopefully to 2020, 2021. Paul, is this a reboot completely? If not, where do you think it falls in the DCEU, quote unquote? And then is there going to be a Robin if it is a reboot?
I think it's definitely a reboot. I think there's, by the time he actually gets this thing up and running, at this point anyway, just because DC doesn't know, and Warner Brothers doesn't know where the DCEU is headed. Aquaman and Wonder Woman 2 will really test everything and say how viable, and obviously Birds of Prey that's coming out with, let's see how, if we can build off of Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Wonder Woman 2, then let's see what we can, in Birds of Prey, then maybe they can go, let's make this part of that universe, but whatever. I think if I was a betting man, I would say no, it's its own thing. And if it's own thing, I think the pressure of Robin becomes, it shows up because it hasn't been done that way. It hasn't been done very much. It's a glaring part of the character that's been ignored for a long time. I think it's a challenge. And I think that's, as a filmmaker like Matt Reeves has done, which is filmed apes, the last 2 ape movies, and, with CGI that looks impossible. And he took that challenge and he made it, he killed it. So I think that, as a screenwriter and as a director, maybe he'll want to take that on. I think that Robin will show up. I think it's about time. Let's be real. Everything comes in cycles, right? In circles. So we're going to, we haven't got Robin in a film yet. We got Forever. That was forever ago. No pun intended. And now it's time. I think it's the climate is there. There's, the millennials and everyone, it's these young people on the internet, they who are getting more into comic books, and they're seeing the Damians, the Waynes and the Nightwings and all the cartoons. Like, Robin's there. I think he's more popular than ever, in my opinion. So I think it's now or never or not now or never, but now is a time to really maybe at least introduce the idea of Robin, and let's see. I think if I'm betting man, I'd say Robin will show up in Matt Reeves' films at some point.
Awesome. I basically agree. So that'll be my opinion. I think you're on the money. I think that it's going to be a reboot, and I think we're going to get a Robin, and I hope that we do. Ryan, what do you think?
I also think it's going to be a reboot and it's going to be its own thing, but I feel like unless having Robin or exploring Robin is specifically up Matt Reeves' alley, I don't see it happening in his movie. The thing that I do see happening is that like Warner Brothers being keen on like let Matt Reeves do his own thing, but we're going to do our own thing over here with like Birds of Prey movies and stuff, and that's where you would have your solo Nightwing movie. I think they could handle that, that way where you would kind of get your Robin, but kind of not, and you would still have the character. And I think that in their minds, it might please everybody.
Yeah.
But if Robin is a cornerstone of the Matt Reeves movie, I will be highly surprised, but also highly, pleased.
Yeah, me too. Hey, listen, we all love Robin. I am loving Robin now more than I've probably loved him in 20 years. It feels good. I'm really enjoying these stories I'm reading, these Chuck Dixon standalone Robin stories. I text Ryan the other day, Paul, I said, it's not that I've never read Tim Drake stuff before. I've just never really dived into it and really paid attention to Robin.
Right.
Always more about just Batman and the action and who the villain is and the subs, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I also, one of my favorite things about comics too is, we can trace this back to the genesis of comics, is how it reflects what's going on in society at this moment in time. And I'm a political buff and I love history, and comic books just kind of bring all that stuff alive. So I'm reading some of this stuff here just lately in the early 90s, and it's Saddam Hussein, it's Kuwait, I love it. It's just, it makes me, you realize why we love comic books, and I'm enjoying the hell out of these stories. And so I am ready. I've not been this ready in a long time for a Robin in a film. And, my idea is just an opinion. That's all it is. I want to put it out there. It's fun, and I wanted to debate it. I do feel that I'm confident in what I'm saying could work. But
it's the clear untapped potential of a Batman on film right now is to do a Robin thing.
Yeah, and
really.
Like Paul said earlier, I'm going to paraphrase, man, but you said it perfectly. You were like, it's not necessarily now or never, but it's a good time. He's popular, people love him. He deserves his day in court or whatever, and I agree with that. And so I hope that we see it. So thanks for this conversation, guys. This was fun. I wish Justin could have been on with us because I would have really piled on the John Blake thing more because I just kind of avoided it with Paul. But it's a good conversation. It's almost a podcast in itself. But hey, Paul, do us a favor, man. We're gonna plug some stuff and get out of here. What do you have going on, sir? You got all these. You are on a million podcasts. So what's new? What's fresh? What's coming around the corner for you?
I've got this Star Wars podcast. I've been guesting a lot of different stuff with Star Wars Report recently. I guested on, what was the one I did the other day? Rebel Cells, another, we review a Clone Wars episode.
Can I get your quick thoughts on Billy D. Williams in episode 9?
It's cool. I'm excited. Billy D's awesome. So, but I've been, doing lots of that. Me and Sean over at Marvel Newscast have been doing, lots of cool comic book reviews for our Patreon, which I really love, to be honest, because that's my bread and butter is comic books. So, but yeah, I just love talking about stuff I love, which is comic books and comic book movies and Star Wars. So yeah, I've just been doing lots of guest stuff on there, and check out my other podcast, Marvel Newscast, obviously, but also Blaster Cannon podcast via Den Geek. Also the Saga Continues Star Wars podcast. Those are my three major podcasts.
Well, dude, I know you're super busy. We love having you on, man. You're always a great guest, good friend. Thanks for this discussion, sir. It was awesome.
No problem.
Cool, man. All right, Ryan Haas, you want to plug anything real quick?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan. Follow the, appropriate to this conversation, follow the Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake, Tim Drake podcast on Twitter at ELTD podcast. And follow my Super Mario Brothers movie archive website on Twitter too at SMB Movie. We are doing a bunch of crazy 25th anniversary events this year because it's that movie's anniversary, and we're actually going to be having a screening here in Raleigh here in just a couple months in September. So pay attention to the website and the Twitter, and you'll get all the info as it becomes more permanent.
That's awesome, man. Follow me on Twitter at ShewRick, ShewRick, and be sure to really be paying attention to things on Batman on Film, guys. A lot of cool things going on with the 10-year anniversary of The Dark Knight and the 20th anniversary. Comic-Con, and then, of course, the 20th anniversary of Batman on Film in itself. There's a really cool video that we've worked on that is being produced as we speak that's going to reflect 20 years of BOF, so I'm excited for everybody to see that. And really check out the stuff that Bill's putting up. It's cool. All his set visits and interviews with Nolan and Gary Oldman and all this stuff. It's just, all this Dark Knight stuff is just exciting. So I can't believe it's already been 10 years. I can't believe it's been 20 years of BOF. It's a great year. So on behalf of all of us, thank you very much for supporting the show. My name is Rick Shew, and we're going to have announcer Rachel take us out.
Hey now! You've been listening to the Batman on Film podcast, a proud member and the sponsor of the Batman Podcast Network, batmanpodcastnetwork.com. You can listen to the BOF podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and wherever good podcasts like this one can be found. Want to advertise on the BOF podcast? Go to advertisecast.com/the Batman on Film Con podcast. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film and on BOF's Facebook fan page at facebook.com/jet.batmanonfilm. Email Jet via jet@batman-on-film.com. I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening.